The wind howls across the open plains, carrying with it the dust of the California Trail. Imagine a time when the promise of gold pulled men like moths to a flame. Wagons creaked beneath the sun, oxen groaned under their yoke, and men dreamed of riches buried deep within California's rivers and mountains. But along with those dreams came shadows, dangers that lurked in valleys, canyons, and springs where the land itself seemed to remember every drop of blood spilled upon it. This is a story of Bloody Springs, a quiet patch of earth in Lassen County, California. At first glance, it's just another stop along the historic route north of Sacramento Valley. Yet beneath the soil lies a tale of greed, violence, tragedy, and mystery. And somewhere out there, hidden in memory or myth, are thousands of gold coins, coins said to have vanished forever into the gorge of the Pitt River. The story begins in the early 1850s, during the height of the gold rush. Men from all corners of the world trekked into California, driven by hope, by desperation, or by sheer lust for fortune. Many traveled along the California Trail, winding down from the northeast, but not everyone reached their dream. For some, the journey ended in fire, blood, and silence at the place they came to call Bloody Springs. The land was no quiet witness. Here, the conflicts between the white prospectors and the native tribes defending their ancestral home erupted into violence. Raiders struck swiftly. Arrows cut the air. Rifles cracked back in fury. Some nights, the cries of battle echoed so fiercely that even the wolves fled into the timber. And in that setting, one particular massacre gave birth to a mystery that lives on even today. One wagon, one survivor, and $60,000 in gold. $20 coins had disappeared into the Pitt River Gorge. Were they lost forever, scattered across the rocks and water below? Or could they still be waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to search? The wind at Bloody Springs whispers the same question again and again. Where are the lost gold coins? It began with fire. The wagons rolled into the canyon near the springs, their wheels grinding over stone and dust. The men were tired, their throats parched, but their eyes gleamed with hope. After all, this was no ordinary caravan. This wagon held treasure, stacks upon stacks of gold coins, minted in San Francisco, destined for the dreams of fortune seekers. But dreams often invite death. The native warriors had watched the caravan for days, hidden among the trees and cliffs of the Pitt River. To them, this was not just a wagon, it was an invasion. Strangers trampling across sacred lands, pushing further into valleys their people had called home for centuries. The decision was swift. The wagon would never leave Bloody Springs. At dawn, as the men kindled their fire for breakfast, the first arrow struck. It thudded deep into the wood of a wagon. Another pierced the shoulder of a prospector before he could reach for his rifle. Panic erupted. The men scrambled, shouting, firing blindly into the tree line. But for every shot that rang out, a dozen arrows returned. The battle raged, brutal and merciless. Some tried to flee toward the gorge, but the canyon walls betrayed them, offering no escape. By the time the sun had climbed high into the sky, the spring was red. Every prospector lay silent, their hopes buried beneath the soil. Every prospector but one, crawling through blood and dust. Clutching at the torn earth, a single man stumbled away. An arrow had grazed his arm, and terror burned in his eyes. He ran until his breath came in sobs, ran until his legs collapsed beneath him. Somewhere between despair and survival, he left the massacre behind. But he carried a story. The lone survivor would later tell it, breathless, haunted, yet unforgettable. He swore that as he fled, he turned once, just once, and what he saw burned itself into his mind. The warriors had gathered around the wagon, but they did not steal the gold. No, instead they laughed, shouted, and turned the massacre into a game. One by one, they lifted the shining coins into the sunlight, and then they hurled them, flashing discs of fortune sailing through the air, arcing high, before vanishing into the deep gorge of the Pitt River. Cheers rang out each time a coin flew furthest, one after another. Every last coin was thrown until the wagon sat empty, nothing but an echo of wealth lost forever. It was madness, or was it ritual, a rejection of the white man's greed? Whatever the truth, $60,000 in gold was gone, lost in the gorge, scattered across rock, river, and shadow, and so the place earned its name, Bloody Springs. The man who staggered into Fort Crook days later was nearly unrecognizable. His clothes were torn, his body fevered, his eyes hollow. Soldiers gathered around him, listening in disbelief as his trembling lips painted the horror. He told them of the attack, of his dead companions, of the arrows, the fire, the screams that would never leave his ears. But what caught everyone's attention, what spread like wildfire, was his tale to coins. He swore he had seen them hurled into the gorge, glittering in the sunlight before vanishing into the river's roar. "Every last one," he whispered. "They threw them all away. They didn't want it. They didn't want gold." Some laughed, some doubted, but none could dismiss the detail in his voice. Could $60,000 truly be lying at the bottom of the Pit River? Could treasure seekers reclaim it? If only they dared face the treacherous cliffs and fast waters? The soldiers at the fort shook their heads. They had seen massacres before. They knew the futility of searching a gorge so wide, so deep. And yet, the story spread. Miners whispered about it around campfires, their eyes glinting with greed. Adventurers spoke of it in hushed tones in saloons, their fingers tracing maps with trembling anticipation. The man himself did not stay long. Perhaps the weight of what he had seen was too great. Perhaps he feared that others would call him a liar or worse. He vanished into history, leaving only his story behind. But stories have power. Stories outlive the men who tell them. And soon, Bloody Springs became a place not just a tragedy, but a possibility. A place where fortunes might still lie waiting for the daring or the desperate. And so, the legend grew. To understand the legend of Bloody Springs, one must understand the land itself. Lassen County, with its rugged valleys and roaring rivers, has always been a place of both beauty and danger. The Pit River cuts through it like a scar, steep, unforgiving, its waters swift and merciless. Stand at the edge of the gorge, and you'll feel the wind tear at your face, hear the thunder of the river below. It's a place where anything dropped is gone forever. Or so it seems. For generations, the local native tribes told their own stories of the gorge. Stories of spirits that dwelled in the waters. Stories of offerings cast into the river to appease forces greater than man. To them, the gold coins hurled into the gorge may not have been a game at all, but a rejection, a cleansing of something poisoned, something foreign, a way of telling the intruders, your wealth means nothing here. Yet for the white settlers, the story twisted into obsession. What if the coins hadn't all sunk? What if some lay hidden in crevices, caught between rocks, waiting? Men searched. They climbed the cliffs, they scoured the riverbanks, they risked life and limb for even a glimmer of gold. Some claimed to find a coin or two, though no proof ever surfaced. And still, the gorge kept its secrets. The land around Bloody Springs remembers. Bones lie buried where wagons once burned. Trees whisper with winds that echo cries of battle. And beneath it all, the question never dies. Were those coins truly lost forever, or is fortune still waiting to be claimed? The legend endures because no one can prove it false. And perhaps that's what gives it power. Years passed, decades rolled on, yet the story of Bloody Springs never died. Each generation brought new fortune hunters, eager to test their luck. Some came with ropes and pulleys, scaling the canyon walls in search of cracks where coins might have lodged. Others built rafts, braving the fierce waters of the Pit River, eyes scanning every eddy for a flash of gold. Some disappeared. The gorge claimed them as it had claimed the coins. Others returned empty-handed, cursing the futility of chasing myths. Yet a few swore they had glimpsed something glinting in the depths just beyond reach. By the late 19th century, Bloody Springs had become as much a ghost story as a treasure tale. Travelers passed it with wary eyes, muttering prayers under their breath. Ranchers told their children not to linger there after dark. And still, from time to time, whispers rose in the saloons. What if the coins are still down there? The Great Depression brought another wave of seekers. Desperate men with nothing to lose scrambled across the gorge, convinced that fortune waited for them. But the river remained silent. The gorge remained cruel. Not a single fortune was made from Bloody Springs. And yet, the mystery never faded. Even today, Hikers pause at a gorge, staring into its depths, imagining discs of gold resting beneath the water. Some dream of modern technology, diving gear, sonar, excavation. Could today's tools succeed where men with ropes and lanterns failed? Or is a gorge a tomb too deep, too treacherous to ever yield its secrets? Today, Bloody Springs looks peaceful. The grass grows tall. The river runs on, endless and untamed. Birds circle above, and the wind carries only silence. But to those who know its story, every stone, every shadow, every whisper of the gorge is heavy with history. Stand at its edge, and you might feel it. The weight of all that happened here. The cries of men who dreamed of riches, but met only death. The laughter of warriors who rejected gold with a toss of the hand. The lonely footsteps of survivors staggering toward salvation. The coins, if they ever truly fell as he said, remain unseen. Perhaps they lie buried in the riverbed, silt and stone sealing them away forever. Perhaps they were swept downstream, scattered into oblivion. Or perhaps, just perhaps, some still rest in cracks and hollows, waiting for the day the gorge gives them back. But maybe the real treasure of Bloody Springs isn't gold at all. Maybe it's the story itself. The reminder that greed can blind, that land remembers, that history is written not only in books but in rivers and stones. The mystery endures because we want it to. Because deep down, every one of us wants to believe there's fortune just out of reach, waiting to be found. And so the legend of Bloody Springs lives on, whispered by the wind, carried by the river, told around campfires in the dark of night. Where are the lost gold coins? Perhaps nowhere, perhaps everywhere. Perhaps they are only a story that will never die. And as the camera fades on the quiet gorge, the river roars louder, drowning out all but one eternal question. What would you risk to find them?